Whenever you get into bowl games, bowl season, it really does become about which team is the game more about. And we've really not hit the talking season for Georgia Ohio State yet. But I'll tell you, whichever team really, to me, in a way, this game has a little bit been more about Ohio State than it has been Georgia. Um, and part of that in our world is learning more about Ohio State, seeing what they can do, what they can't do, what they really struggle with. But, I think that heading into this Peach Bowl, and really the hype will really amp up after Christmas. So we've got another week of sort of the calm before the storm. But there's been a lot of discussion of what's going on at Ohio State lately. I mean, for every Stetson Bennett's going to the Heisman, you had CJ Stroud there. We have not seen Georgia players that are declaring that they're not going to play in this game because of injury. We've not seen, you know, really much of anything from Georgia. It's just been a quiet offseason. So, well, what is this? Not really the offseason, bowl season so far for Georgia. There's been a lot of news at Ohio State with the players that have been hurt, the discussion of quote, should they be in and all this stuff. So a lot of this game so far has been about Ohio State. I mean, I don't really have know any other way of talking about it or putting about or discussing it. But I think that in smaller bowl games, that often is like a bad sign. In these big bowl games, I don't know that you can say that as much because both teams are obviously trying to reach the ultimate goal, which is to win the national championship. And Ohio State's not done that in about 8 years, and their coach Ryan Day has not won the national championship yet. I think personally that he will. I think Ryan Day will win the national championship. Now, when he'll do that, I don't know. It could be this year, obviously, but it looked for a long time like it wouldn't be. So I don't know what sort of quote narrative that you want to go with Ohio State. I mean, is it they got a second life? I mean, there's been a lot of that discussion. Is it that they, have not played well lately? Is it that they've had guys who have, kind of are too injured to play in the game? Is it that, lately they've not played well in big games? Is it that, this is a redemption story for Ohio State? There are questions with Georgia too, but um, I think the ultimate question is, can Georgia win two more games and become back-to-back national champions? Something you just don't see a lot in college football. Um, and I mean, I think the answer is yes, but um, we're just going to have to figure out how this goes as we get there. But I think the attention so far has been on Ohio State. Hey, we're running out of time before Christmas. Make sure if you want Dogstruction that you pick it up today. I'm recording this on Saturday. Order it Saturday. I can get it out the door on Monday. Priority mail. You'll get it before Christmas, but start ordering the book now. The link is right down below. If you want to go to Red Zone, you can do that too. Obviously, our friends at Ticket IQ, um, I actually just bought something through them. So I can confirm to you that none of the stupidity and hassle that you deal with on other third party, um, you don't deal with that. So it's something to keep in mind. I went to one of their competitors and the service fees were $400. So I said, you know what? No, we're going to stick with our friends at Ticket IQ, and I have no doubt that it will be a wonderful experience when that event happens in the spring. I'm not going to talk about it too loud because it's a Christmas gift, but I think when you start thinking about Ohio State and what they bring here, um, this is a team that heading into this game, you're going to have the quote doubters of Ohio State. They're about a touchdown underdog now. That line has moved a little bit. Um, and it's going to be about what Ohio State can't do and what this and this, that, and the other, and all that. But the problem is that there's some truth to all of that too. I mean, if you're Ohio State, you've not played well when it matters most in the last two seasons. That's against Michigan. The Ohio State Notre Dame game. I'll be frank, they did not play well against Notre Dame. And that's the game I watched to completion. It was not a great showing for them. Now they won the game, and I think that just like the Penn State game, which I saw a fair amount of, you need to be given credit when you have a tough game and you win it. Georgia, Missouri, um, Michigan, Illinois. You're going to confront those in a season. You don't want to consistently have that problem. And Ohio State really did on the road this year. I think, too, there was a lot of clarity this week with Gary Stokan talking about the ticket situation. There are fewer tickets for this bowl game than I have grown accustomed to over time. Um, Tickets are a big deal for bowls, and this is going to be a little bit more of a home game for Georgia than I thought it would be. I thought that Ohio State would be able to get about 17,000 tickets, maybe 20, and be sort of outnumbered 50,000 to 20,000. It's going to be even worse for them. I do not think that they're going to get much in the way of the secondary market because so much of those are corporate tickets in boxes in the mezzanine level of the Georgia Dome's replacement. There's just, it's going to be a very wickedly home game for Georgia. And that's another challenge that Ohio State's going to deal with. Is playing on the road hard? It is. And why? Well, the biggest thing is you cannot, um, it's challenging to draw people off sides. So the offense is really not at an advantage the way you'd like to be, like when you're playing at home. I mean, I'm going to go through this because this is actually very important. Um, Snap count matters. It gives you the capability to disguise when the play is starting. When you don't have that, that means whenever the offensive lineman does this or the quarterback gives his clap, you basically know that's the snap. So that one thing means the defensive linemen are on top of you quickly. We know that Georgia will not face a road scenario from here on out. We also know that they will play on, turf, and they will be indoors. They have really been good in those situations lately. When you think about just this season, the SEC championship game, the LSU game, the national championship game in Indianapolis, obviously the loss to Alabama in 2021 in Atlanta, that was the worst performance they've had lately indoors. But Georgia's been, the Peach Bowl come from behind victory, um, the Sugar Bowl against Baylor. I mean, they played pretty well in those scenarios. And I think when you take their worst games out this season, which were I would say the Kentucky game and the Missouri game, both were on the road. Probably their third worst performance was Kent State, and that was a turnover game. But this team, this is going to be a challenging game for Ohio State. If they come out and really play well, it means that they have not played like they did against Notre Dame. It means they did not play like they did against Michigan. And this is a big moment. And this Georgia team is not full of superstars. Let's be clear about that. I mean, there's some really good players on this team. Keely Ringo certainly could be a first round draft pick. Brock Bowers, Darnell Washington, they certainly could be first round draft picks. Jalen Carter could be first round draft picks. Those guys are all exceptional players, and they all stand a chance of being top 50 players. Jalen Carter could go number one overall, but there is no, Caleb Williams on this team or um, Johnny Manziel or some exceptional running back that, everybody, Derrick Henry, for instance. There's no one guy that you're like, man, think about Georgia's defense right now. This I'm gonna do another video on this, but they had All-American selection, two of them unanimous, but they had All-American selections on the defensive line, at linebacker, and in the secondary. Every level of their defense has an All-American on it. I mean, that is something else. And that's not that's recruiting, development. It really is coaching as well. It's player buy-in, and I think that's why we're going to hear more about Ohio State than we are about Georgia. Because I think, truthfully, and I don't think it means someone is going to win the game or someone isn't, there are more questions with Ohio State right now. If we're just being honest, there are more questions about Ohio State right now coming into this thing. How do they adjust? How will they deal with the essentially away game scenario and atmosphere? How will they come off a big loss? I mean, there are more questions with Ohio State, and people can get riled up if they want to, but it's just the truth.